If any of you do a search on the word analytics or workforce analytics, people analytics, or HR analytics, you'll drown yourself in the multitude of definitions that are out there. This is the Gartner model. It shows 4 categories of analytics that are possible: descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. As you can see, each of these categories of analytics are intended to answer different questions. Descriptive analytics really focuses on what happened. The diagnostic focuses on why did it happen. The predictive looks at what will happen or may happen. And prescriptive is more in the line of how do we make this happen. It puts those on a couple of continuums simultaneously. One of them is the difficulty to continue as you go from descriptive through to prescriptive. It gets more and more difficult to do these kinds of analyses because they're much more complex. But having said that, the value to the organization in carrying out these analyses goes up as well. Part of what we'll talk about in the discussion is what are some of the things that make up the 4 levels. That way we can begin to understand where we land on the model when we hear about a particular statistical procedure or analytical procedure out there. Gartner's model attempts to structure our thinking as well. As organizations are getting into this, they could be almost stopped in their tracks when they look at this stuff and think, how in the world do we get our heads around this? The model helps them get a sense of the various types of analytical tests and where they fit into the model. It also helps to plan on where you're starting your initiatives as an organization. It's like a roadmap where you can say, on my analytics journey, I am right here. For example, a lot of organizations strive to achieve predictive analytics. The Gartner model shows them what they need to do first. The problem with the model is its name. Gartner calls it a maturity model. Maturity implies a value judgment. When you are doing analyses, it's not about the analysis itself, but the purpose for which you are trying to accomplish. If we look at it in terms of maturity and we decide that predictive is more mature than descriptive and advanced reporting, we tend to think that one is better than the other. You can't make a statement on whether something is better than something else in the abstract. This depends on the question that you're asking. So for me, when I look at the talent analytics maturity model, I think of it more in terms of capability and complexity. You wouldn't use a more advanced tool that tries to answer the question, how do we make things happen, when your question is just basically at the descriptive analytics stage of what is happening. When you look at Gartner's model, most of the activity in data-driven HR is in the descriptive analytics chain. Examples are the preparation of dashboards and scorecards for senior executives. When you're working on these reports, you're trying to show what happened. When I say that they are descriptive analytics stage, I don't imply a value judgment. I'm just trying to place it accurately within the what questions are you trying to ask when you do that. When you are preparing metrics for a scorecard or for dashboards or executive reports, you're answering just what happened. Trends also fit in this category as you still don't really know why something happened. You're just showing what happened one metric at a time. The second level of Gartner's model is diagnostic analytics. The supplementary question to that is, how is this happening? In some cases, why is it happening? It's getting at the explanation of what we are seeing. Usually the ability to get at the why and the how requires us to look at more than just the metric itself. And sometimes it requires us to look at 2 metrics at the same time and other related data on which the particular metric will vary. Data warehouses mirror this understanding. When you're building data warehouses, you have measures, metrics, dimensions that have all sorts of categorical information that you think that the measure is going to vary by. So data warehousing tools and cubes can now be sliced and diced by categorical pieces of information upon which the metric is varying. To do diagnostic analysis, you have to start looking at 2 or more metrics at a time and compare metrics on how they vary on categorical or demographic variables. This helps to see whether the metric varies in the organization along any one of these criteria. In terms of statistical procedures in this area, you are looking at correlation, scatter plots, and similar types of analysis to see if there's visually if there's any relationships in the data and or in summary statistical form. If you're looking at categorical information in terms of dependent and independent variables, then you will use analyses such as crosstabs and the chi-square statistic. If you're looking at a mixture, where you've got a dependent variable that is typically numeric and an independent variable that is categorical, then typically what you will be looking at is testing of the means of the numeric variable along various categories of information. And this usually implies analysis of variance, or ANOVA, as the kind of statistical tool that might be used to do that. All 3 of those are the kinds of things that you might be doing as diagnostic analyses in order to answer the question, why did it happen? The third level of Gartner's model is predictive analyses, and that's getting at what will happen or what might happen. Typically, the kinds of statistical procedures that are used in predictive analyses are the various forms of regression, linear regression, ridge regression, and so on. These tools are used to predict a numeric variable on independent variables that have to be numeric as well. You've got other tools such as discriminant analysis, decision trees, random forests, boosting mechanisms, and so on. There's a whole set of procedures that definitely goes beyond the idea of answering the question, why did this happen? These concentrate more on the question of what will happen. If you're really into predictive analyses, your focus is far more on getting accurate predictions, regardless of the explanation on why it's occurring. The final level of Gartner's model is prescriptive analyses. This focuses on the question of how do we make it happen? This question really embraces the fact that we've come up with some very stable and highly confident, predictable models at the level of predictive analytics. Once you know the mathematical relationship between 2 variables, you can manipulate the value on the outcome variable by altering the independent variable. This enables you to actually affect changes in the future that may be more in the direction of where you want to go. In other words, prescriptive analytics takes this one step further and says, if we're good at making predictions, how can we act on this so that we are getting results that are more in the direction of what we want to achieve in terms of organizational purpose. This is a brief explanation of the 4 stages of Gartner's maturity model. Once again, it's not the case that the highest level is the best level. It depends on your situation. Sometimes you can use descriptive analytics to answer a business question. Sometimes you need to leverage predictive analytics and so on.